The morning light filtered through the grimy windows of Emma Carter's studio apartment in Queens, painting golden streaks across the cramped space she called home. At 28 years old, Emma had grown accustomed to waking up before her alarm, a survival instinct developed over years of juggling multiple responsibilities and never quite having enough time or money to feel secure. She sat up in bed, her brown hair falling messily around her shoulders, and reached for her phone on the makeshift nightstand. A stack of culinary textbooks she'd purchased secondhand 3 years ago, when she still believed she might afford culinary school. The screen showed 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before her alarm. She sighed, a small smile crossing her tired but kind face. Another day, she whispered to herself, a mantra she'd adopted after her mother passed 2 years ago, leaving Emma truly alone in the world. The apartment was tiny, barely 300 square feet, but Emma had made it her own. Polaroid photographs covered one wall, her late mother's smile at her high school graduation, her younger sister Lily's 10th birthday party, snapshots of happier times before gang violence tore her family apart when she was just 15. Lily had been 12 in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught in crossfire that wasn't meant for her. Emma pushed the memories away as she always did, compartmentalizing pain into a box she only opened late at night when sleep wouldn't come. She had learned that survival meant moving forward even when your heart wanted to stay frozen in the past. She dressed quickly in her work uniform, black slacks, a crisp white button-down shirt, and comfortable black shoes that had seen better days but still had a few miles left in them. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror showed a woman who looked older than her years, worry lines around her eyes, a perpetual tiredness that no amount of concealer could fully hide. But there was still warmth there, still kindness in her hazel eyes. The subway ride from Queens to Manhattan took 45 minutes, packed shoulder to shoulder with other early morning commuters. Emma had learned to find peace in the chaos, using the time to listen to audiobooks, currently a biography of Julia Child that made her dream of impossible futures where she owned her own cafe, created her own menu, built something that was truly hers. She emerged from the subway station at 7:23 a.m. into the awakening heartbeat of Manhattan. November in New York City carried a sharp chill, the kind that cut through jackets and reminded you that winter was coming fast. Emma pulled her thin coat tighter. She'd meant to buy a warmer one last year, but rent had increased, and warm coats had fallen down the priority list. The streets were already alive with the symphony of the city, delivery trucks rumbling past, the melodic calls of street vendors setting up their carts, the hiss of steam rising from subway grates, the distant wail of sirens that were as much a part of New York's soundtrack as car horns and construction noise. Emma walked 3 blocks to Rossi's Italian Bistro, a family-owned restaurant that had occupied the same corner of Little Italy for 43 years. The red brick building had old-world charm, a hand-painted sign, small windows with lace curtains, the kind of place that felt like stepping into someone's grandmother's home. "Morning, Emma," called out Tony Rossi, the 62-year-old owner who ran the restaurant with his wife Maria. He was already sweeping the sidewalk outside, his thick Brooklyn accent carrying warmth despite the cold morning. "Morning, Tony," Emma replied, genuine affection in her voice. Tony and Maria had given her a chance 3 years ago when she was desperate, grieving, and had a resume full of gaps. They'd seen something in her, maybe recognized a fellow survivor, and had treated her not just as an employee but as family. "Maria's already got the sauce going," Tony said with a knowing smile. "Says you're the only one who stirs it the right way." Emma laughed softly. "Maria just likes having someone to talk to while she cooks." "That too," Tony admitted with a wink. Inside, the restaurant smelled like heaven. Garlic, basil, tomatoes, fresh bread. Maria Rossi stood at the large stove in the open kitchen, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, her floral apron already dusted with flour. At 60, she moved with the efficiency of someone who'd spent a lifetime perfecting her craft. "Ah, there's my girl," Maria called out in her thick Italian accent. Come, taste this and tell me if it needs more oregano." This was their morning ritual. Emma would arrive early, help Maria with prep work, and in exchange Maria would teach her, really teach her how to cook. Not just follow recipes but understand food, respect ingredients, create with instinct and love. For the next 2 hours, Emma chopped vegetables, kneaded dough for fresh pasta, arranged tables, and absorbed every lesson Maria offered. These moments were precious to her. They felt like the relationship she might have had with her own mother if cancer hadn't stolen her away. "You have good hands," Maria said, watching Emma shape pasta. Patient hands, that's the secret, you know. Patience and love. You put those in every dish. People taste it. You've taught me that, Emma replied softly. Maria paused, studying Emma with the knowing eyes of someone who'd seen hardship and recognized it in others. You still saving for that cafe of yours? Emma's hands stilled for just a moment. Trying to, but you know, rent went up again. And my student loans, she trailed off, not wanting to burden Maria with complaints. Life has a funny way of working out, Maria said gently. You keep being good, keep working hard, your time will come. I believe this. Emma wanted to believe it too, but at 28, with $17,000 in student debt from a college degree she'd never finished, $342 in her savings account, and rent that consumed most of her paycheck, belief was hard to maintain. The restaurant opened at 11 a.m. By 11:15, the lunch rush had begun. Rossi's was popular with locals and tourists alike, the kind of authentic spot that food bloggers love to discover and regulars protected fiercely. Emma moved through the dining room with practiced grace, balancing plates, remembering orders, offering recommendations, making small talk. She was good at this, really good. She had the rare gift of making people feel seen, heard, valued. Regular customers requested her section specifically. At 12:30 p.m., the bell above the door chimed, and Emma glanced up from the order she was taking to see a little girl enter with a woman in her mid-30s, wearing sunglasses and an expensive-looking coat. The little girl was perhaps 6 years old, with dark curly hair pulled into two ponytails, wearing a navy blue school uniform and clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. Her eyes, large and expressive, scanned the restaurant with curious intelligence. "Welcome to Rossi's," Emma called out warmly. "Sit anywhere you'd like." The woman guided the little girl to a table near the window. Emma noted it was somewhat isolated from other diners, giving them privacy. The woman sat with her back to the wall, eyes constantly scanning the room. Emma recognized the behavior, hypervigilance. She'd seen it in herself after Lily died, that constant awareness of exits and threats. Emma approached their table with menus and a warm smile directed at the little girl. "Hi there, what's your friend's name?" she asked, gesturing to the stuffed rabbit. The little girl looked up at Emma with those big eyes and smiled shyly. "His name is Mr. Hops. He's very old. My mommy gave him to me." "Mr. Hops is a very distinguished gentleman," Emma said seriously, making the girl giggle. "I can tell he has excellent taste. Now, do you and Mr. Hops know what you'd like for lunch?" "Can I have spaghetti with butter?" the girl asked hopefully. "And hot chocolate?" "Sophia, it's not polite to," the woman began. "That sounds perfect," Emma interrupted gently. "One spaghetti with butter and the best hot chocolate in New York City coming right up. And for you, ma'am." "Just coffee." "Black," the woman said curtly, her eyes never stopping their scan of the room. As Emma walked away, she heard the little girl, Sophia, say, "She's nice, Elena. I like her." Over the next 45 minutes, Emma found herself drawn back to their table more than necessary. Sophia was a delightful child, articulate, imaginative, with an old soul quality that suggested she'd seen or experienced things beyond her years. When Emma brought the hot chocolate topped with fresh whipped cream and a sprinkle of cinnamon, Sophia's face lit up like Christmas morning. "This is the most beautiful hot chocolate I've ever seen," Sophia exclaimed. "Well, a distinguished gentleman like Mr. Hops deserves only the best," Emma replied with a wink. During a brief lull, Emma noticed Sophia drawing on a napkin with crayons the woman, Elena, had pulled from an expensive leather bag. Emma approached with a genuine curiosity. "What are you drawing?" Sophia looked up, brightening at the attention. "A castle. Do you like castles?" "I love castles," Emma said, crouching down to Sophia's eye level. "Is that where you live?" Sophia's expression shifted slightly, something flickering across her young face that looked like sadness. "No, I live in a big house, but it's not like a castle. Castles have princesses and happy endings. My house just has—" She paused, seeming to search for words. "Lots of quiet." The comment struck Emma deeply. She recognized that loneliness, had lived it herself. "Well," Emma said softly, "maybe you're drawing the castle you'll live in someday, when you're a grown-up princess who makes her own happy endings." Sophia's eyes widened with hope. "Do you really think so?" "I absolutely think so." Elena checked her watch and pulled out her phone, typing rapidly. Emma stood, sensing their time was ending. "Would you like me to box up the rest of your spaghetti?" "Yes, please," Sophia said. Then with the earnest seriousness only children can muster, she added, "Will you be here next time I come?" "I work Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 7, Emma said. "So if you come during those times, I'll be here." "I'll tell my daddy," Sophia said firmly. "He should meet you. You're nice." Something about the way Sophia said it, with such certainty and determination, made Emma's heart squeeze. This little girl was clearly lonely, clearly craving normal connections and warmth. As they prepared to leave, Sophia suddenly turned back and hugged Emma around the waist, quick and spontaneous and desperate in the way children hug when they're starved for affection. "Thank you for being nice to me and Mr. Hops," Sophia whispered. Emma's throat tightened with emotion. "Any time, sweetheart. You come back and see me soon, okay?" Elena placed a $100 bill on the table, far more than their modest meal cost, and guided Sophia toward the door. Emma watched them go, a strange feeling settling in her chest. Something about that interaction felt significant, though she couldn't explain why. The lunch rush continued. Emma pushed the encounter to the back of her mind as she served other tables, cleared plates, refilled drinks, laughed at regulars' jokes, and navigated the controlled chaos that was Rossi's during peak hours. At 1:45 p.m., the bell chimed again. Emma glanced up automatically, expecting another hungry customer. Instead, 3 men entered. Something about them immediately set off alarm bells in Emma's instincts. The way they moved, the way their eyes scanned the room with calculated precision, the bulges barely concealed under their jackets. They weren't here to eat. Tony noticed too. Emma saw him stiffen behind the host stand, saw Maria's hands still at the stove. The entire atmosphere of the restaurant shifted, like the pressure change before a storm. The men moved further into the dining room. 2 of them positioned themselves near the exits. The third, tall with a scar running down his left cheek, walked slowly between tables, his gaze searching. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Tony asked, his voice steady despite the tension radiating from him. "Just looking for someone," the scarred man said, his accent Eastern European. "Little girl? Dark curly hair? Seen her?" Emma's blood ran cold. "Sophia." She turned her head slightly, scanning the restaurant, and her heart nearly stopped. At a table near the window, the same table as before, sat Sophia and Elena. They must have returned or perhaps never left. Elena's face had gone pale, her hand moving toward her purse. "We don't want trouble," Tony said firmly. "This is a family restaurant." "Then give us the girl and there won't be trouble," the scarred man replied, his tone almost casual. But his hand moved toward his jacket, and Emma knew with absolute certainty, that everything was about to fall apart. Time seemed to slow down. Emma saw Elena reaching into her purse, saw one of the other men pulling something from his jacket, saw Sophia's confused face as she looked between the adults, saw other diners beginning to realize something was wrong. Emma didn't think. Thinking was for people who had time, and time had just run out. She moved. Her feet carried her across the dining room toward Sophia's table. She heard someone shout. Maybe Tony, maybe Elena, maybe her own voice. She saw Elena pull a weapon from her purse, saw the men react, saw the world explode into chaos and noise and terror. Emma reached Sophia's table just as the first loud crack split the air, the unmistakable sound of a weapon being discharged. Screams erupted throughout the restaurant. People dove under tables, scrambled for exits, pulled out phones. "Get down!" Elena screamed, trying to shield Sophia while returning fire toward the attackers. But Emma was already there. She grabbed Sophia, who was frozen in fear, tears streaming down her young face, and pulled her down, covering the little girl's body with her own, wrapping herself around Sophia like a shield. "Close your eyes, sweetheart," Emma whispered urgently, holding Sophia's head against her chest. "Close your eyes and think about your castle. Think about princesses and happy endings. Don't look. Don't look." Sophia buried her face in Emma's shirt, her small body trembling violently, her hands clutching Mr. Hops and Emma's uniform with equal desperation. The noise was overwhelming. More shots, shouting, furniture overturning, glass shattering. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, her entire body wrapped around Sophia, trying to make herself as large as possible, as much of a barrier as she could be. She felt it before she understood it, a sharp, burning sensation in her left shoulder, then her side, like being punched, but wrong, hot, spreading. Emma gasped, her arms tightening around Sophia instinctively. Pain radiated through her body, white hot and consuming, but she didn't let go. She couldn't let go. "It's okay," she managed to whisper to Sophia, though her voice was strained. "You're okay. I've got you. I've got you." More shouting. More chaos. Then sirens. Distant but growing closer. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it had started. Emma heard running feet, the sound of the men fleeing. Elena's voice barking orders into a phone. "Emma." Sophia's small, terrified voice cut through the fog of pain. "Emma, why are you making that noise?" Emma realized she was making a sound, a low, pained whimper she hadn't been conscious of. She tried to stop, tried to smile, tried to reassure this little girl whose world had just shattered. "I'm okay, baby," she lied, feeling warmth spreading across her skin, the unmistakable wetness of her own blood. "Everything's going to be okay." Elena appeared beside them, her face pale and splattered with. Emma's mind couldn't process it. Elena holstered her weapon and immediately assessed Emma with professional efficiency. "Oh God," Elena breathed. "Sophia, honey, I need you to move. I need to help Emma." "No," Sophia cried, clutching Emma tighter. "No, don't leave me, Emma. Please don't leave me." "I won't," Emma whispered, though darkness was creeping in at the edges of her vision. "I won't leave you, sweetheart. I promise." But her body was betraying her. The adrenaline that had carried her through the last minutes was fading, and the reality of her injuries was overwhelming her system. She felt herself listing to the side, her arms loosening around Sophia despite her desperate desire to hold on. "Emma," Sophia's voice was rising in panic. "Emma, wake up, Emma!" Emma's eyes fluttered open one last time, focusing on Sophia's face, those big dark eyes now filled with tears and terror, her small hands touching Emma's cheeks, trying to keep her conscious. "You're going to be okay," Emma managed, each word an immense effort. "Promise me, you'll remember, the castle." "I don't care about the castle," Sophia sobbed. "I need you. Please don't go. Please." The last thing Emma saw before darkness claimed her was Sophia's face, tears streaming down her cheeks, her mouth forming Emma's name over and over. The last thing she felt was the little girl's hand clutching hers with desperate strength. Then nothing. The sirens grew louder. Paramedics rushed in. Someone, maybe Tony, maybe Maria, was crying. Elena was giving rapid instructions, pulling out a phone, making calls that clearly carried authority. And Sophia sat there holding Emma's limp hand, her school uniform stained with blood that wasn't hers, her stuffed rabbit fallen forgotten beside them, rocking back and forth and repeating the same words over and over. "Please wake up. Please wake up. Please wake up." The little girl who'd drawn castles and dreamed of happy endings had just learned a harsh truth about the world she'd been born into, that people you cared about could be taken from you in an instant, that violence didn't care about innocence, and that sometimes the people who protected you paid a terrible price. But she had also learned something else, something that would stay with her forever, that a stranger, an ordinary waitress who had no reason to risk anything, had chosen to shield her, had wrapped herself around Sophia's small body, and taken harm meant for her without a moment's hesitation. As the paramedics worked frantically over Emma's unconscious form, loading her onto a stretcher, Sophia watched with eyes that had aged years in minutes. "Is she going to die?" Sophia asked Elena in a small, broken voice. Elena's jaw tightened. She pulled out her phone again, dialing a number she called only in emergencies. "No," Elena said with fierce determination. "She's not going to die. I'll make sure of it. Your father will make sure of it." The call connected. Elena's voice became crisp and professional. "Mr. Marcello, there's been an incident. Sophia is safe, but the woman who saved her..." Elena's voice cracked slightly. "She took hits meant for your daughter, sir. Multiple wounds. We need your private medical team immediately. And sir, you're going to want to know this woman's name. It's Emma Carter, and she just became the most important person in Sophia's life." As the ambulance pulled away, lights flashing and sirens wailing through Manhattan's streets, Sophia sat in the back of an armored black SUV, her face pressed against the window, watching until the ambulance disappeared from view. In her small hand, she clutched the napkin with the castle drawing Emma had admired, now creased and tear-stained, but precious. And somewhere in that drawing, in those lines made by crayons and childhood imagination, was a promise that had just been made and sealed in blood, that Emma Carter's ordinary life had just ended, and something extraordinary, dangerous, complicated, and life-changing was about to begin. Consciousness returned to Emma Carter in fragments like puzzle pieces slowly clicking into place. First came awareness, the dull, persistent ache that told her body was still there, still fighting. Then sounds, the steady beep of monitors, the soft hum of machinery, distant voices speaking in low professional tones. Finally, sensation, the scratch of expensive sheets against her skin, the cool air of climate control, the heaviness in her limbs that spoke of medication and exhaustion. She tried to open her eyes, and even that simple action required immense effort. Her eyelids felt weighted, her entire body moving as if underwater. When she finally managed to force them open, harsh light made her wince, and closed them immediately. The lights, a deep male voice said quietly. Dim them. Emma heard movement, and when she tried again, the brightness had softened to something tolerable. She blinked slowly, her vision swimming before gradually focusing. This was not a hospital room, or rather it was, but unlike any hospital Emma had ever seen. The space was enormous, easily 3 times the size of a standard hospital room. The walls were painted in warm cream tones. Real artwork hung in frames, not prints but original paintings. A leather sofa sat against one wall. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of Manhattan's skyline, the late afternoon sun painting the buildings in shades of gold and amber. A private room. An extremely expensive private room. Emma's heart rate picked up, and immediately the monitors beside her bed reflected the change with faster beeping. She tried to sit up, and pain lanced through her shoulder and side, forcing a gasp from her lips. Don't move, the male voice said, closer now. You have stitches, multiple wounds. The doctor said you need to stay still. Emma turned her head, slowly, carefully, toward the voice. A man stood beside the window, silhouetted against the fading daylight. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with broad shoulders filling out an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. As he moved away from the window and into better light, Emma got her first clear look at him. He appeared to be in his early 40s, with dark hair touched with gray at the temples, strong features that might have been handsome if they weren't so severe, and eyes, deep brown, almost black, that seemed to see everything. There was something coiled about him, like a predator at rest but ready to spring into action at any moment. Power radiated from him, the kind that came not from wealth alone but from control, from knowing that with a single word, he could change lives. Who are you? Emma managed, her voice raspy from disuse and medication. Where am I? My name is Victor Marcello, he said, his voice low and measured, carrying the faint trace of an accent that spoke of Italian heritage several generations removed. You're in Mount Sinai's private medical wing. You've been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days. The information took a moment to process. Emma's mind felt foggy, struggling to grasp the timeline. Sophia, Emma said suddenly, memories flooding back. The restaurant, the men, the shooting, the little girl in her arms. Is she? She's safe, Victor interrupted, and something in his expression softened fractionally. Thanks to you. My daughter is safe because you put yourself between her and armed men without hesitation. Daughter. The word clicked into place, and suddenly so many things made sense. Elena's hypervigilance, the expensive clothes, the $100 tip, the attack itself, the men who came into the restaurant, Emma said slowly, her mind working through the implications. They were there for her specifically. They called her by name. Victor's expression hardened, his jaw tightening. They were associates of a rival organization. They intended to take Sophia, to use her as leverage against me. What they didn't anticipate was that a 28-year-old waitress would have more courage than men twice her size. There was something in his tone, not quite admiration, but recognition. Respect, perhaps. Grudging, but genuine. I didn't think, Emma admitted. I just moved. Most people freeze, Victor said. Or they run. Self-preservation is a powerful instinct. You overrode every natural response to protect a child you'd met once for less than an hour. He paused, studying her with those intense dark eyes. Why? Emma considered the question. Why had she done it? In that moment she hadn't had time to analyze or rationalize. But now, lying in this expensive hospital bed, she could trace the threads back to their source. Because no child should pay for the choices adults make, she said finally. Because I know what it's like to lose someone to violence that wasn't meant for them. Because, she trailed off, surprised to find tears burning in her eyes. Because she looked at me like I mattered. like I was someone worth knowing, and I couldn't let anything happen to her. Victor was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he moved to the chair beside her bed and sat down, a gesture that somehow made him seem more human, less like a figure from a different world. "Tell me about your injuries," Emma said, needing to change the subject, to understand what had happened to her body. "You were struck twice," Victor said, his voice clinical but not cold. "Once in the left shoulder, once in your left side, just below the ribs. The shoulder wound was clean, through and through, missing major arteries. The side wound was more serious. It required surgery to remove fragments and repair damage. You lost significant blood. The doctor said if the ambulance had arrived even 5 minutes later." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Emma absorbed this information, her hand moving instinctively to her side, feeling the bandages beneath the hospital gown. She'd come within 5 minutes of dying. The reality of it was overwhelming. "The doctors here are the best in the country," Victor continued. "Your medical care, your recovery, everything, it's all been taken care of. You won't see a single bill. Consider it handled." "I can't accept that," Emma said automatically, even as her practical mind calculated what this level of care must cost. Tens of thousands, easily. Maybe more. "I don't even have insurance that would cover this kind of facility." "You don't have a choice," Victor said, and there was steel beneath the words. Not a threat, but a statement of fact. "You saved my daughter's life. There is no sum of money, no gesture, that could adequately repay that debt. But I can at least ensure that your sacrifice doesn't destroy you financially." "It wasn't a sacrifice," Emma protested. "I didn't do it expecting payment. I did it because it was right." "I know," Victor said, and this time there was definitely something like admiration in his voice, "which is precisely why you deserve to be compensated. You acted with pure intention. That's rare." Before Emma could respond, the door to her room opened and a nurse entered, professional, efficient, checking the monitors and Emma's vitals with practiced ease. Behind the nurse, hovering in the doorway, was a small figure Emma recognized immediately. "Sophia," Emma breathed. The little girl stood there in a lavender dress, her dark curly hair held back with a matching headband, clutching Mr. Hops against her chest. But it was her eyes that broke Emma's heart. Those big, expressive eyes now shadowed with fear and trauma, rimmed with dark circles that spoke of nightmares and sleepless nights. "Is she awake?" Sophia asked in a small voice, addressing her father but staring at Emma with desperate hope. "Is she really awake? Elena said she might wake up today, but I was scared she wouldn't. I was scared." "She's awake, Principessa," Victor said gently, using an endearment that transformed his severe features into something almost tender. "Emma is awake and she's going to be fine." Sophia didn't wait for permission. She rushed into the room, stopping just short of the bed, her hands clutching Mr. Hops so tightly her knuckles were white. "You came back," Sophia whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You came back. I thought you left me like Mommy did. I thought you were gone forever." Emma's heart shattered. She reached out her right hand, her good arm, toward Sophia. "Come here, sweetheart, carefully, okay? I'm a little sore, but I really need a hug." Sophia climbed onto the chair beside the bed, and with Victor's steadying hands carefully leaned against Emma, her small body shaking with sobs. Emma wrapped her arm around the little girl, stroking her hair, making soft, soothing sounds she remembered her own mother making. "I'm right here," Emma murmured. "I promised you I wouldn't leave, remember? And I keep my promises." "But there was so much blood," Sophia hiccuped against Emma's shoulder. "And you weren't moving. And I was so scared. I've never been so scared." "I know, baby. I know. But I'm okay now. See? I'm right here talking to you. And you know what? You were so brave. You did exactly what I told you to do. You closed your eyes and thought about your castle." "I don't care about the castle anymore," Sophia said fiercely, pulling back to look at Emma with intensity beyond her years. "I only care that you're okay. Daddy said you're a hero. He said you saved my life." Emma glanced at Victor, who was watching the interaction with an expression she couldn't quite read. Something complex, layered with emotion he clearly wasn't accustomed to showing. "Your daddy's right that you're safe," Emma said gently. "And that's all that matters to me." The nurse finished her checks and left quietly. Elena appeared in the doorway. Emma recognized her immediately and gave Victor a meaningful look. "Sophia, darling," Victor said softly. "Emma needs to rest. We should let her." "Can I stay?" Sophia asked, looking between her father and Emma with pleading eyes. "Please?" Just for a little while. I'll be quiet, I promise. Emma saw Victor's internal struggle, the desire to give his daughter anything she wanted warring with what he clearly believed was right. Before he could respond, Emma spoke up. She can stay for a bit, Emma said. If it's okay with you, maybe she could tell me about what she's been doing for the past 2 days. I bet there are stories. Victor's expression softened at Emma's understanding, at her willingness to prioritize Sophia's emotional needs over her own rest. He nodded once. 30 minutes, he said to Sophia. Then Emma needs to rest properly, and you need dinner in bed. You haven't been sleeping well. Okay, Daddy, Sophia agreed readily, already settling more comfortably in the chair. Mr. Hops tucked securely in her lap. Victor stood, preparing to leave, but paused at the door. His eyes met Emma's, and something passed between them. An understanding, an acknowledgement of the bond that had been formed through violence and protection. Thank you, he said simply, for everything. We'll talk more when you're stronger. Then he was gone, leaving Emma alone with Sophia and the late afternoon light streaming through the windows. Part 2. Connections. Over the next 3 days, Emma's hospital room became a strange sort of sanctuary. Sophia visited daily, always accompanied by Elena or Victor, sometimes both. The little girl would sit beside Emma's bed for hours, drawing pictures, reading books aloud, telling stories about school and friends and the lonely vastness of the Marcello estate. Emma learned that Sophia attended an exclusive private school on the Upper East Side, that her favorite subject was art, that she loved strawberries but hated bananas, that she had nightmares about the restaurant but wouldn't talk to the child psychologist her father had hired because she doesn't understand like Emma does. Victor came too, though his visits were briefer, more formal. He would check on Emma's progress, ensure she had everything she needed, ask careful questions about her comfort level and pain management. There was a reserve to him, a wall he kept firmly in place, but Emma began to notice cracks, the way his expression softened when Sophia laughed, the concern that flickered in his eyes when Emma winced in pain, the careful consideration he gave to her words when they spoke. On the 4th day, when Emma was finally cleared to sit up properly and the fog of pain medication had lifted enough for real conversation, Victor arrived alone. He carried a leather folder and wore a different suit, navy this time, equally expensive, equally perfectly tailored. How are you feeling? He asked, taking his usual seat in the chair beside her bed. Better, Emma said honestly. Sore, but better. The doctors say I can probably be discharged in a few days if I continue to heal well. Discharged to where? Victor asked, his tone neutral but his eyes sharp. Your apartment in Queens? The one on the 3rd floor with no elevator? Where you'll have to climb stairs with fresh surgical wounds and limited mobility? Emma blinked, taken aback. How do you know about my apartment? I had you investigated, Victor said bluntly, offering no apology. The moment you saved my daughter's life, you became someone I needed to understand completely. I know about your studio in Queens, your student loans, your late mother, your sister who died when you were 15. I know you worked at Rossi's for 3 years, that Tony and Maria Rossi consider you family, that you're saving money to open your own cafe someday. I know you're paycheck to paycheck, that you've been turned down for business loans 4 times, that you donate to 3 charities despite barely being able to afford it. He paused. Should I continue? Emma felt violation and understanding war within her. The invasion of privacy was stunning, but she also recognized the logic. A man in Victor's position couldn't afford to leave anything to chance. That's very thorough, she said carefully. I'm a thorough person, Victor replied. I don't take chances, especially not with Sophia's safety. When a stranger throws herself into danger for my daughter, I need to understand motivation, background, potential threats. And what did you conclude? Emma asked, meeting his gaze directly. Am I a threat? Victor's expression shifted, something that might have been respect flickering across his features. No, you're exactly what you appear to be. A good person trying to survive in an expensive city, carrying grief you've never properly processed, working hard and dreaming of a future that's always just out of reach. He leaned forward slightly. Which brings me to why I'm here. I want to make you an offer. Emma's stomach tightened with apprehension. What kind of offer? Victor opened the leather folder, revealing documents Emma couldn't read from her position. Your current living situation is unacceptable for someone recovering from serious injuries. Your job at Rossi's, I spoke with Tony and he's holding your position, but you'll be unable to work for at least 6 weeks, possibly longer. During that time, you'll have no income, And your rent won't pay itself. Tony's holding my job? Emma asked, latching onto the one piece of good news. He is. Though he also mentioned that you've been working there without health insurance, which is why this hospital stay would have bankrupted you if I hadn't intervened. Victor's tone was matter-of-fact, not judgmental. Your financial situation is precarious even in the best circumstances. These are not the best circumstances. Emma hated that he was right. She'd been so focused on just surviving that she'd never built any safety net, any cushion for disasters, and this definitely qualified as a disaster. What's your offer? She asked, keeping her voice steady. Move into the guest house on my estate, Victor said. It's a 2-bedroom cottage fully furnished with its own kitchen and living space. You'll recover there under the supervision of my private medical staff. Your job will be simple. Spend time with Sophia. Be her companion, her friend. Help her process what happened. Be the stable, normal presence she desperately needs. Emma stared at him, trying to process the implications. You want to pay me to be your daughter's friend? I want to ensure my daughter's emotional well-being while simultaneously ensuring the woman who saved her life doesn't end up homeless, Victor corrected. Sophia has been having nightmares, refusing to talk to professionals, barely eating. But when you're here, she smiles. She laughs. She acts like a 6-year-old child should act. You provide something I can't. Normalcy, warmth, genuine connection. And what would you pay for this companionship? Emma asked, though part of her recoiled at putting a price on friendship. $75,000 for 6 months, Victor said without hesitation, plus free housing, medical care, and meals. After 6 months, we can renegotiate based on how things are working. Emma's mind reeled. $75,000. That was more than she'd made in the past 2 years combined. That was her student loans paid off, a real savings account, money toward her cafe dream. That was also accepting money from a man whose organization was clearly not legitimate business, a man whose daughter was targeted for abduction, a man who operated in a world of violence and crime. I need time to think about this, Emma said. Of course, Victor replied, standing. Take all the time you need. But Emma, he paused at the door, his expression serious. I'm not a good man. I won't pretend to be. I've done things that would horrify you. Made choices that keep priests awake at night praying for my soul. But I love my daughter more than life itself, and I protect what's mine with everything I have. If you accept this offer, you'll be under my protection. Nothing and no one will harm you. You have my word. After he left, Emma sat in the expensive hospital bed staring at the Manhattan skyline and tried to figure out what the hell she was supposed to do. Part 3, Ghosts and Decisions. That night, Emma dreamed of Lily, her younger sister, 12 years old forever, wearing the purple jacket she'd loved, her braces catching light as she smiled. They were at the park near their childhood home in Brooklyn, and Lily was on the swings, pumping her legs, trying to go higher. Push me, Emma, Lily called, her voice full of joy. Emma pushed and Lily went higher, higher, until she was nearly parallel with the top bar. Be careful, Emma called. You're going too high. I'm flying, Lily laughed. Then the scene shifted, as dreams do. They were no longer in the park but on a street Emma recognized with nauseating clarity, the corner of Bedford and Sterling, where her sister had died 13 years ago, where Lily had been walking home from a friend's house, had been in the wrong place when rival groups opened fire on each other, had taken a stray round that no one had meant for her. Emma, Lily said, and now she was lying on the pavement, and Emma was 15 again, holding her sister, screaming for help that came too late. Emma, don't let them hurt anyone else. Don't let other kids die like me. Emma woke with tears on her face and Lily's name on her lips. The hospital room was dark except for the glow of monitors, quiet except for her own ragged breathing. She pressed her good hand against her chest, trying to calm her racing heart. Lily had died because of the violence that came with criminal organizations, with gang warfare, with men who valued territory and pride over human life. And now Emma was being asked to essentially join a criminal's household, to become part of that world, to accept money that probably came from activities she'd rather not think about. But then she thought of Sophia, 6 years old, traumatized, having nightmares, losing her mother 3 years ago to violence and now nearly losing Emma the same way. Sophia, who just wanted to draw castles and drink hot chocolate and be treated like she mattered. Emma had failed to save Lily, but she had saved Sophia, and if she walked away now, If she left that little girl to process her trauma alone, surrounded by bodyguards and therapists but no one who truly understood, wasn't that its own kind of betrayal? Over the next 2 days, Emma wrestled with the decision. Tony and Maria visited, bringing flowers and concern. Tony told her not to worry about the job, that she was family, and her position would be there whenever she was ready. Maria hugged her carefully and whispered, "You follow your heart, Kara. It knows the right path." Elena visited too, surprising Emma with her directness. "I know what you're thinking," Elena said, standing by the window where Victor usually stood. "You're wondering if accepting Victor's offer makes you complicit in his world. If taking his money makes you dirty somehow." "Does it?" Emma asked. Elena considered the question seriously. "I've worked for the Marcello family for 8 years. I've seen things I wish I could unsee. But I've also seen Victor walk away from lucrative deals because children were being exploited. I've seen him fund schools in poor neighborhoods, protect small business owners from predatory practices, ensure that families under his influence have health care and support." She turned to face Emma. "Is he a criminal?" "Yes, but he's also a father who loves his daughter desperately, and right now that little girl needs you. So you decide what matters more, moral purity or actually helping a traumatized child." On the 6th day, Sophia visited without her father, just Elena accompanying her. The little girl climbed into her usual spot and pulled out a new drawing. "I made this for you," Sophia said shyly, "for when you go home." Emma took the drawing carefully. It showed 2 figures, one taller, one smaller, standing in front of a house. Behind them was a rainbow. Above them, written in a child's careful handwriting, were the words, "Emma and Sophia, best friends forever." "It's beautiful," Emma said, her throat tight with emotion. "Do you like rainbows?" Sophia asked. "I do. They mean good things are coming after the storm. Daddy told me that once when Mommy died and I was sad. He said even after bad storms, rainbows come." Emma looked at this child, this sweet, brave, lonely child, and felt her remaining resistance crumble. She thought about Lily, about 12-year-old dreams cut short, about the sister she couldn't save. She thought about Sophia's nightmares, about her desperate hug in the restaurant, about the way she'd begged Emma not to leave her. Sometimes the right choice wasn't the morally perfect choice. Sometimes it was just the choice that helped someone who needed you. "Sophia," Emma said gently, "how would you feel if I came to stay at your house for a while, just until I'm all better?" "Your daddy asked if I might want to do that." Sophia's eyes went wide with hope. "Really? You'd really come stay with us?" "If you want me to." "I want you to," Sophia exclaimed, bouncing slightly in excitement before remembering to be careful. "I want you to so much. We have a pretty cottage you could stay in and I could show you my room and we could draw together and—" She paused, suddenly uncertain. "Would you really want to, even though my house is different?" "Different how?" Emma asked gently. Sophia bit her lip, choosing her words carefully. "There are lots of security cameras, and men with weapons who watch everything. And sometimes people come to talk to Daddy and everyone has to be very quiet. And, she trailed off, looking down at Mr. Hops. "And sometimes it feels more like a fortress than a home," Emma offered softly. Sophia nodded. "I heard Elena say that once. She said our house is beautiful but feels like a fortress. Is that bad?" "It's not bad," Emma said. "It just means your daddy works very hard to keep you safe. And honestly, Sophia, after what happened at the restaurant, I think having security around sounds pretty good." "So you'll come?" Sophia asked hopefully. Emma took a deep breath, feeling like she was standing at the edge of a cliff about to jump. "Yes, sweetheart. I'll come." Part 4. The New Reality. 3 days later, Emma was discharged from the hospital. She'd insisted on going back to her apartment first. She needed clothes, personal items, her few precious belongings. Victor had agreed, but sent Elena and 2 security personnel with her, along with a medical aide. Climbing the 3 flights of stairs to her studio apartment was excruciating, even with help. By the time Emma reached her door, she was pale and sweating, her wounds screaming in protest. "This is exactly why Mr. Marcello didn't want you returning here alone," Elena said, helping Emma unlock the door. Inside, the apartment looked exactly as she'd left it, small, cramped, but hers. Emma moved slowly through the space, gathering clothes, toiletries, her mother's jewelry box, photographs, her culinary textbooks, the few precious things that mattered. One of the security men brought up suitcases, and Emma packed with Elena's efficient help. Looking around at the tiny space that had been her home for 3 years, Emma felt a surprising pang of loss. This apartment represented her independence, her determination to survive on her own terms. Leaving it felt like abandoning some essential part of herself. "You can come back any time," Elena said quietly, reading Emma's expression. "This isn't permanent unless you want it to be. You're accepting a job offer, not selling your soul." "Feels a bit like both," Emma admitted. Elena smiled slightly, the first real smile Emma had seen from her. "Yeah, it does, but you'll figure out the balance, or you won't, and you'll leave. You're not a prisoner, Emma. You're a guest who happens to be employed." The drive to the Marcello estate took 45 minutes heading north into Westchester County. Emma watched the city give way to suburbs, then to increasingly affluent areas with large properties hidden behind gates and walls. When they finally turned onto a private drive, Emma understood what Sophia had meant by fortress. The estate sprawled across what must have been at least 10 acres, surrounded by a stone wall that was both beautiful and clearly designed for security. The main house was a stunning example of colonial architecture: white columns, black shutters, pristine grounds that looked professionally landscaped. But it was the cottage that took Emma's breath away. Set about 100 yards from the main house, connected by a stone pathway through manicured gardens, the guest house looked like something from a fairy tale. 2 stories, white clapboard with slate blue shutters, a front porch with hanging baskets of late-season flowers and windows that promised light and space. "This is where I'm staying?" Emma asked, stunned. "This is your space for the duration of your employment," Elena confirmed. "Mr. Marcello wanted you to have privacy and comfort during your recovery." Inside, the cottage was even more beautiful. The first floor held an open-concept living room and kitchen, all decorated in soft, neutral tones with comfortable furniture and modern appliances. Upstairs were 2 bedrooms and a full bathroom. Someone had already stocked the kitchen with groceries, placed fresh flowers on the coffee table, and left a welcome basket filled with essentials. On the kitchen counter sat a handwritten note in a child's careful script. "Welcome home, Emma. Love, Sophia and Mr. Hops." Emma felt tears spring to her eyes. This little girl, this sweet, lonely child, had called this place Emma's home. "Take the rest of the day to settle in," Elena said. "Sophia knows you're here and she's very excited, but Victor wants you to rest first. Dinner will be brought over at 6 if you're feeling up to it, or you can request something different. There's a phone system." She showed Emma the discreet intercom panel by the door. "That connects you to the main house, security, and medical staff. Don't hesitate to use it if you need anything." After Elena left, Emma stood in the beautiful cottage, surrounded by comfort she'd never experienced in her adult life, and wondered what exactly she'd agreed to. She thought about her tiny studio in Queens, about Rossi's restaurant, about her simple, predictable life that had been shattered 2 weeks ago by 3 men and a courageous impulse. She unpacked slowly, placing her mother's jewelry box on the dresser, her photographs on the nightstand, her culinary books on the built-in shelves in the living room, making the space hers, claiming it as her temporary home. As the sun set and the late November cold set in, Emma made herself tea in the beautiful kitchen and sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching lights come on in the main house. She could see figures moving past windows. Sophia's room, she guessed, seeing a smaller shadow. Her room was on the 2nd floor, corner position, probably with a view of the gardens and the cottage. Emma wondered if Sophia was looking out right now, knowing Emma was here, feeling safer because of it. The thought made Emma's decision feel right despite all her doubts. She had just finished her tea when she heard footsteps on the path. Victor emerged from the darkness, wearing dark slacks and a sweater instead of his usual suit, somehow more intimidating in casual clothes because they made him look more real, more human. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the porch steps. "It's your property," Emma pointed out. "It's your home," he countered. "I don't enter uninvited." Emma nodded and Victor sat on the steps, not close but not distant either. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the evening sounds of the estate surrounding them, wind in trees, distant sounds of staff finishing their duties, the hum of security systems doing their invisible work. "Sophia is thrilled you're here," Victor said finally. "She's been watching the window since we got the call that you'd left the hospital. I had to physically stop her from running down here the moment your car arrived. I'm glad I can make her happy," Emma said honestly. "She's a special kid, Victor." "She is." His voice carried layers of emotion, pride, love, fear. She's the only pure thing in my life, the only truly good thing I've ever been part of creating. He paused. Her mother, my wife, Isabella, she kept Sophia innocent, protected from my world. When Isabella died, I thought I could continue that protection alone. But I'm not equipped for what Sophia needs. I can keep her physically safe, but emotionally, he trailed off. You're doing better than you think, Emma said gently. Sophia talks about you constantly, how you read her bedtime stories, how you listen to her theories about why the sky is blue, how you always have time for her questions. She knows you love her, Victor. That's not nothing. Victor looked at her with an expression Emma couldn't quite read. You see the best in people, even when they don't deserve it. I see what's there, Emma corrected. You're not the monster you pretend to be. You're a father who's terrified of failing his daughter. I understand that fear. Because of your sister, Victor said. It wasn't a question. Emma nodded slowly. Lily. She was 12 when she died, caught in gang crossfire on her way home from school. Wrong place, wrong time. The people responsible were never even arrested. The case went cold, just another tragedy in a neighborhood full of tragedies. She wrapped the blanket tighter. I was 15 and I couldn't protect her, couldn't save her. That failure, it shapes you, which is why you didn't hesitate with Sophia, Victor said, understanding dawning. You saw a chance to succeed where you'd failed before. Maybe, Emma admitted, or maybe I just saw a kid who needed protection and reacted. I don't know if my motives were that complex in the moment. Victor stood, preparing to leave, but he paused, looking back at Emma. Whatever your motives, you saved my daughter's life. There's a debt there that can never be fully repaid. But I want you to know, you're not just an employee, Emma. You're under my protection now. My enemies are your enemies. My resources are your resources. And I keep my people safe. I'm not your people, Emma said softly. I'm just someone trying to help Sophia heal. You became my people the moment you threw yourself between my daughter and armed men, Victor replied. Welcome to the family, Emma Carter, for better or worse. He walked back toward the main house, leaving Emma alone with the implications of what she'd just agreed to. As she watched him go, she noticed something she hadn't seen before. In one of the cottage's upstairs windows reflecting the interior light, she could see the edge of a photograph frame on the dresser where she'd unpacked. Curious, Emma went back inside and climbed the stairs carefully. The photograph was one she'd brought from her apartment, a picture of her mother and Lily, taken the summer before Lily died. They were at Coney Island, laughing, cotton candy in hand, joy captured in a perfect moment before tragedy struck. But as Emma lifted the frame to straighten it, something caught her eye. Behind her family photo, someone had placed another photograph, one that had been in the dresser drawer, probably left by a previous occupant. Emma pulled it out, and her breath caught. The photograph showed a woman, beautiful with dark hair and Sophia's eyes, standing in what looked like this very cottage's living room. She was laughing at something off camera, her expression full of life and warmth. But it wasn't the woman herself that made Emma's hands tremble. It was what she was wearing, a necklace distinctive and unmistakable that Emma had seen before, in newspaper articles, in police reports, in the investigation files she'd obsessed over as a teenager, trying to understand her sister's death. The necklace had belonged to a witness in a gang-related investigation, a woman who'd mysteriously disappeared before she could testify, her disappearance leading to a case collapse that had ripple effects through Brooklyn's criminal networks. A witness whose disappearance was linked in buried reports Emma had found during late-night internet searches to the same incident that had led to the violence that killed her sister. Emma stared at the photograph of Isabella Marcello and felt her entire understanding of the situation shift. Sophia's mother hadn't just died in an accident, and her death was somehow connected, however distantly or directly, to the violence that had taken Lily. The coincidence was too strange, too specific, too impossible to be random. Emma sat down on the bed, clutching both photographs, and realized that accepting Victor's offer might not have been about starting something new. It might have been about finishing something old, something unresolved that connected her past to Sophia's present in ways she couldn't yet understand, but knew, with sudden certainty, she needed to unravel. In the main house, lights glowed warm in the windows. Sophia was probably getting ready for bed, maybe looking out at the cottage, feeling safe because Emma was close. And Victor was there too, a man with secrets, with blood on his hands, with a daughter he loved more than life, and a dead wife whose photograph suggested connections Emma had never imagined. Emma carefully placed both photographs side by side on the dresser, her family's joy before tragedy, Victor's wife's happiness before death. Two women, two families, connected by invisible threads of violence and consequence. What did you know, Isabella? Emma whispered to the photograph. And why does it matter now? The photograph, of course, offered no answers. But Emma knew, with the certainty that came from years of unanswered questions about her sister's death, that she would find them. She'd come to this estate to help Sophia heal. But maybe, just maybe, she'd also come to finally understand the truth about the violence that had shaped her own life. The path forward was unclear, potentially dangerous, definitely complicated, but Emma had never been one to walk away from hard truths. And this truth, whatever it was, had been waiting 13 years to be discovered. The first week at the Marcello estate passed in a strange rhythm of normalcy and underlying tension. Emma woke each morning in the beautiful cottage, her wounds healing slowly but steadily under the care of Dr. Reeves, Victor's private physician who visited every other day. Sophia became Emma's constant companion. Each afternoon, after the little girl returned from school, she would race down the stone pathway to the cottage, her backpack bouncing, Elena following at a more measured pace. They would sit at the kitchen table, Sophia doing homework while Emma prepared simple snacks, talking about everything and nothing. "Miss Peterson says I'm the best artist in class," Sophia announced one afternoon, her pencil moving across her math worksheet. "But I told her it's because Emma teaches me to see things differently." Emma smiled, slicing apple wedges. "You are already talented, sweetheart. I just showed you some techniques. Can we draw later? After I finish this horrible division?" "Horrible division?" Emma laughed. "Math is actually beautiful once you understand it. Here, let me show you a trick my mom taught me." These moments felt precious, ordinary childhood experiences that Sophia clearly craved. Emma understood now what Victor had meant. His daughter didn't need more guards or therapists or expensive tutors. She needed someone who would sit with her, help with homework, laugh at silly jokes, and make her feel like a normal 6-year-old. But beneath the comfortable routine, Emma's mind constantly returned to the photograph. Isabella Marcello, wearing that distinctive necklace. The connection to her sister's case felt too specific to ignore, yet Emma had no idea how to pursue it without raising suspicions. Victor maintained a respectful distance. He would appear for dinner twice a week, formal meals in the main house where Sophia chattered happily, while Emma observed the careful dynamic between father and daughter. Victor was attentive but reserved, clearly uncomfortable with emotional displays, yet desperate to connect with Sophia. "Daddy, Emma says we can make cookies tomorrow," Sophia announced during one such dinner. "The kind with chocolate chips. Can you help?" Victor's expression softened. "I have meetings tomorrow, Principessa. But perhaps this weekend?" "You always have meetings," Sophia said, disappointment clear in her voice. The comment hung in the air awkwardly. Emma intervened gently. "Your daddy works very hard to take care of you, Sophia, but I bet he'd love to taste test the cookies we make. Should we save him the biggest one?" Sophia brightened. "The one with the most chocolate chips." Victor's eyes met Emma's across the table. Gratitude, and something else. Recognition, perhaps, of how naturally Emma navigated these emotional moments he found so difficult. Part 2. The investigation begins 2 weeks into her stay. Emma finally had an opportunity. Victor was in the city for the day, Sophia was at school, and Elena had mentioned needing to run errands. Emma stood in her cottage staring at Isabella's photograph, and made a decision. She pulled out her laptop, an old, battered thing she'd brought from her apartment, and began searching. The necklace was distinctive, a gold chain with a pendant featuring 3 intertwined circles, each set with a different colored stone. It had been mentioned specifically in witness reports from 13 years ago. The witness, a woman named Maria Santos, had been scheduled to testify about gang activities in Brooklyn. She'd witnessed a confrontation that led to increased violence, including the incident that killed Lily. But Maria had disappeared before the trial, and the case had collapsed. Emma had researched this obsessively as a teenager, trying to understand why her sister's killers went free. She'd memorized every detail of those reports, including descriptions of Maria Santos's appearance and distinctive jewelry. Now, years later, she was staring at that same necklace around Isabella Marcello's neck. Emma's hands trembled as she typed, searching for connections between Maria Santos and Isabella Marcello. The names were different, but what if? A knock at the cottage door made Emma jump. She quickly closed the laptop and stood, her heart racing. Marco stood on the porch, Victor's captain, a man in his mid-30s with sharp eyes and an easy smile that never quite reached those eyes. Emma had met him briefly during her first week. "Emma," he said pleasantly, "Mr. Marcello asked me to check on you. Make sure you have everything you need." "I'm fine, thank you," Emma replied, keeping her voice steady. "Just resting." Marco's gaze flickered past her into the cottage, landing briefly on the laptop on the coffee table. "Good. Recovery is important, but if you need anything, or if you have any questions about the estate, the family, anything at all, I'm happy to help." There was something in his tone, a subtle warning wrapped in courtesy. Emma wondered suddenly how much the security staff monitored. Were there cameras in the cottage? Had someone noticed her searching? "I appreciate that," Emma said carefully. "I'm still getting used to everything here. It's a different world," Marco acknowledged. "Takes adjustment, but you're doing great with Sophia. She's happier than I've seen her in years." He paused. "Mr. Marcello values loyalty, Emma, and he protects those who are loyal to him. Just something to remember." After he left, Emma stood frozen, her mind racing. The message had been clear. Stay in your lane. Don't ask questions. Be grateful for what you have. But Emma had never been good at accepting things without understanding them. She waited until evening, until Sophia was back and they were drawing together at the kitchen table before carefully broaching the subject. "Sophia, can I ask you something about your mom?" Sophia's crayon paused. She looked up, her expression guarded. "What about her? You said she died 3 years ago. Can you tell me what happened?" "Only if you want to," Emma added quickly. "I don't want to upset you." Sophia was quiet for a long moment, her small fingers gripping the crayon tightly. "There was an accident. A car accident. Daddy says she didn't suffer, that it was quick." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "But sometimes I hear him talking on the phone late at night, and he sounds angry, like he doesn't believe it was really an accident." Emma's heart clenched. "Do you remember your mom well?" "Some things. She smelled like flowers. She sang to me in Italian. She always wore this pretty necklace that sparkled." Sophia's eyes suddenly filled with tears. "Daddy keeps all her things locked away. He says it's too painful to look at them. But I wish I could see her pictures. I'm starting to forget what she looked like." "Oh, sweetheart," Emma said, pulling Sophia close. "It's okay to want to remember. Your mom would want you to remember the good times." That night, after Sophia returned to the main house, Emma made another decision. If Victor kept Isabella's belongings locked away, there had to be a reason beyond grief, and Emma needed to know what that reason was. Part 3. Discoveries. The opportunity came during Sophia's 7th birthday party, 3 weeks into Emma's stay. The estate was transformed. Decorations, catering staff, Sophia's school friends arriving with parents who were clearly wealthy and influential. Emma helped Sophia get ready, braiding her hair and helping her into a beautiful purple dress. "You look like a princess," Emma said, adjusting Sophia's headband. "I wish Mommy could see," Sophia whispered. "I bet she can," Emma replied gently. "And I bet she's so proud of the brave, kind, amazing person you're becoming." During the party, while adults mingled and children played elaborate games organized by professional entertainers, Emma noticed Victor briefly leave through a side door with 2 men in expensive suits. Security tightened around the perimeter. Something important was happening, something that required Victor's immediate attention. Emma saw her chance. She slipped away from the party, moving through the main house with purpose. She'd been inside several times now, knew the basic layout. Victor's private office was on the 2nd floor down the east corridor. The door was locked as expected, but Emma had learned a few things growing up in Queens, including how to pick a simple lock with a hairpin. Her hands shook as she worked, expecting any moment to be caught. The lock clicked. Emma slipped inside, closing the door quietly behind her. The office was exactly what she expected. Expensive furniture, bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes, a massive desk with multiple computer monitors. But it was the filing cabinet in the corner that drew her attention. Also, locked. Emma worked quickly, her heart pounding so loud she was sure someone would hear it. The lock gave way, and Emma pulled open the drawer labeled with an M. Inside were folders, business documents, property deeds, financial records, and then at the back, a folder simply labeled Isabella. Emma pulled it out with trembling hands. Inside were photographs, documents, investigation reports. Her eyes scanned rapidly, trying to absorb as much as possible before someone discovered her. Isabella Marcello, born Maria Isabella Santos in Brooklyn, changed her name at 18, married Victor Marcello at 22, died 3 years ago in what was officially ruled a car accident but was clearly under investigation by Victor's private team. And there, Emma's breath caught, reports linking Isabella to a witness protection consideration from 13 years ago. The dates aligned perfectly with Maria Santos's disappearance. Isabella hadn't disappeared. She'd married into the Marcello family, changed her identity, started a new life, but someone had found her, and her death wasn't an accident, it was a hit, one that Victor had been investigating for 3 years. Emma photographed several pages with her phone, working frantically. She found a list of names, people Victor suspected, people connected to the original gang violence in Brooklyn. Some names were crossed out, others had notes beside them in Victor's sharp handwriting. And then Emma saw it, a name that made her blood run cold. Raymond Castellano, the same family that had attacked the restaurant, the same organization responsible for the violence that killed Lily. The Castellanos had killed both Isabella and Lily. Different incidents, different reasons, but the same perpetrators. Victor had been hunting them for 3 years, getting closer, eliminating their allies one by one. The revenge wasn't just about Isabella. It was about everyone they'd hurt. Emma was so focused on the documents that she didn't hear the door open until Victor's voice cut through the silence. "Looking for something?" Emma spun around, her face going pale. Victor stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable but his eyes sharp with anger and something else. Betrayal. "I can explain," Emma started, her voice shaking. "You broke into my private office. You're going through confidential files. You've violated my trust and my hospitality." Victor's voice was cold, controlled, but Emma could see the fury beneath. "So please, Emma, explain why I shouldn't have Marco escort you off my property immediately." Emma straightened, meeting his gaze directly despite her fear. "Because your wife and my sister were killed by the same people. Because I've spent 13 years wondering why the people responsible for Lily's death went free. Because Isabella, Maria, was the witness whose disappearance collapsed the case." Her voice cracked. "Because I think you've been looking for the same answers I have. And maybe we can help each other." Victor stared at her for a long moment, emotions warring across his usually controlled features. Finally, he stepped into the office and closed the door behind him. "Tell me everything you know," he said quietly, "and then I'll decide if you live long enough to regret this." Victor studied Emma for a long moment before speaking. "Maria, Isabella, witnessed a confrontation between my associates and the Castellanos 13 years ago. She testified, went into protection, and eventually found her way to me. We fell in love. She thought she was safe." His voice hardened. "She wasn't. They found her 3 years ago, made it look like an accident. The same people killed my sister," Emma said quietly. "Lily was 12. Wrong place, wrong time." "I know," Victor admitted. "I've been investigating everyone connected to that day. Your sister's name came up. When you saved Sophia, I had you researched and realized the connection." He paused. "I've spent 3 years dismantling the Castellano organization piece by piece. They're desperate now. That's why they came for Sophia." "So what happens now?" Emma asked. "Now we finish this," Victor said grimly. "Together." 2 weeks later, the final confrontation came on a cold December evening. Intelligence indicated the remaining Castellano leadership would make one last attempt on Sophia. Victor used it, setting a trap with Sophia safely hidden and Emma as his unexpected partner. When the attack came at the estate, Emma stayed with Sophia in the secure room while Victor's team engaged the threat outside. Sophia clutched Emma's hand, scared, but trusting. "You won't let them hurt Daddy?" Sophia whispered. "Your daddy is very strong," Emma assured her, "and he's fighting to keep you safe. Both of us are." The confrontation was brief, but decisive. The Castellano leaders were apprehended, evidence secured. Years of crimes, including both Isabella's and Lily's deaths, would finally see justice. Emma stood in her new cafe, Lily's kitchen, watching Sophia help arrange pastries in the display case. Victor had invested as a silent partner, but the success was Emma's own. Sophia spent weekends with Emma, their bond stronger than ever. Victor visited often, and slowly, carefully, something was growing between him and Emma. Not rushed, but real. "Emma?" Sophia called. "Can we make Mommy's recipe today? The one Daddy taught us?" "Absolutely." Emma smiled, watching Victor enter with his rare, genuine smile. They'd both lost people they loved to violence, but from that tragedy they'd built something new, a family chosen through courage, trust, and the determination to protect what mattered most. Sophia laughed as flour dusted her nose. And Emma realized that sometimes the greatest stories weren't about revenge or justice. They were about healing, together.